with less than 24 hours to go until NFL free agency begins, I guess the league's legal tampering period, we had to get to this great and bad news for your Buffalo Bills. And then on the back half of today's show, we're going to discuss the top 5 final Bills free agent targets before free agency officially begins on Monday. All of that and more in just a moment. But first, make sure you go down below and hit that thumbs up icon on today's video if you're ready for NFL free agency. The most likes that we've gotten on a video this month has been 181. Let's beat that on today's video. Let's get 200 likes. Let's hit 300 likes. If you love the Bills, go down below and smash that thumbs up button. Okay, we're going to start with the bad news because we got to get that out of the way first. Make you guys feel a little bad now, but we're gonna bring you right back up with some news in just a moment. But Myles Garrett, we mentioned it on the earlier show today when Von Miller was cut. While I was about to film that video, Myles Garrett signed a major contract extension. This from ESPN's Adam Schefter. From trade to truce and beyond, the Browns and Myles Garrett reached an agreement today on a record contract extension that averages $40 million a year, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL by $5 million a season. Includes an additional $123 million guaranteed on the contract. Makes him the highest paid non-QB in NFL history. Unbelievable. And this is bad news because this is my number one mission for Buffalo to go out and accomplish this offseason, was making a big swing trade for Myles Garrett, an absolute game wrecker, a player who you put him on Buffalo's D-line and you won't have to worry about that side of the defensive front. He's automatically going to get to the quarterback, whether it's a pressure or he's getting him on the ground, does not matter. He makes quarterbacks' lives hell. But he got an offer that he realistically could not refuse. I mean, 4 years, $160 million, a record-setting, unprecedented contract for Garrett here. Got $123 million guaranteed. This just wasn't something that Buffalo could go out and do, in my opinion. With the financial constraints that they have right now, it didn't look very possible for the Bills to really come to an agreement that even came close to something like this. They obviously would have had to give him a new deal if they were to make the trade, but he decides to take an offer that he really couldn't refuse. But it's interesting, right? Because it didn't seem like Garrett was interested at all in re-signing with Cleveland, no matter what the money was. But here's what we're going to go through the process of what exactly happened. This is from Daniel Oyefusi. He said Myles Garrett is not open to a contract extension with the Cleveland Browns, as the team remains adamant that it will not accede to the Stars' pass rushers trade request. Cleveland.com first reported that Garrett and his representatives have, quote, slammed the door on negotiations. They weren't having it at all. But then Jeremy Fowler said this. After my talks here in Indy, I believe Cleveland is very dug in and willing to wait him out and show resolve. It's not just a no to any prospective trades, but an emphatic one. And the Browns haven't received many trade calls, in part because teams know it makes no sense to trade him. Listen, I'm not surprised that Cleveland was steadfast in their approach not to trade Myles Garrett. But I'm very surprised that this contract went down. I mean, Garrett, I know it's a deal he couldn't refuse, but kind of wild that he just backed up on all of his statements and decided to sign with Cleveland long term when he knows that they're not going to build a winner anytime soon. Maybe Cleveland promises they would draft a quarterback in the 2025 draft. I still do think, though, just because you're out in Garrett doesn't mean you can just sit on your laurels and not add another edge to this team. You just extended Gregory Rousseau, and he's here long term through 2029. Gave him big time money, about top 15 edge money, but you still need another player alongside him. AJ Epinesa, I was super high on him actually coming into the NFL draft a few years ago, but he just hasn't shown enough for me to warrant a starting defensive end spot on a team that really realistically should be in the Super Bowl in 2026. You need to add somebody else. You just caught Von Miller. Maybe there's an opening to a reunion there, but overall, Buffalo needs to go out and make a move for some sort of productive pass rusher at this point, because that's what you have to do in this league. You got to get to the quarterback. There's elite ones in the AFC. And there are some solid free agents out there to put at the defensive end spot. Talk about a guy like Chase Young, who still has a little bit of untapped potential. Maybe he's out of Buffalo's price range. A guy like Josh Sweat is probably out. I like a guy like Azeez Ojulari on this list, who's a young player. He's had some injury concerns, and so those maybe won't guarantee him a ton of money in free agency. If he hits the open market, why doesn't Buffalo give him a call? But what do you guys think Buffalo's biggest position of need is? We're going to talk about another position that they definitely need to address this offseason in just a moment, but you tell me in the comments section, what do the Bills need to add or bolster on their roster at this point? Okay, now for the good news. Let's go. Diana Russini reports this. The Seahawks asking price for wide receiver DK Metcalf has been lowered per sources. Seattle would be open to a return centered around a second-round pick for the two-time Pro Bowl receiver. Metcalf, this is an interesting point. Metcalf ideally wants to play in a warm weather climate, and is looking to make $30 million a year. I mean, listen, DK's contract extension, if he wants to get $30 million, won't kick in for a couple years, so Buffalo can potentially make this happen. But I am a little concerned about DK's like diva-ish attitude through this whole scenario, like preferring the warm weather, the antics that he has on the field. He's garnered a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties during his time in Seattle after the whistle. Like, there are concerns about DK Metcalf, but if Brandon Beane is serious about adding speed to this roster come 2025, look no further than DK Metcalf, who's 6'4", could run a 4.3 40. Like, he is the definition of speed on the outside, and he's that physical brand of receiver that Buffalo has really lacked in the Josh Allen era so far. Like, you got a guy like Mac Hollins, but he's not a blazer. Like, he doesn't turn on the jets like a guy like DK Metcalf does. He's physical, no doubt, big body receiver, but this is a certified all-pro talent that Buffalo could be adding here. It's an easy way to add speed and another weapon to Josh Allen's arsenal. I think it would be smart to keep him happy. And the Bills have the arsenal of draft picks to go out there and make it happen. 56 overall, 62 overall. Probably not going to give up the first-round pick as the price has publicly been lowered at this point. Would Buffalo, and it doesn't probably look like Seattle would accept anything lower than a third-round pick if it really got down to it. DK going for a fourth would be absolutely insane to me. And Buffalo doesn't have a third to give up. So potentially go out and give them 56 or 62 to go secure DK Metcalf. I think they would be open to it. But Buffalo needs to add more receiving talent. Like I just said, with the edge spot, like those are probably the two biggest positions of need for me for Buffalo's whole roster at this point in free agency. Like if you look at who they have on the squad right now, it's not very inspiring. It truly isn't. And obviously you're losing a guy like Amari Cooper who didn't have a great stint in Buffalo and doesn't look like the receiver that he's looked like over the past couple of seasons. But is Keon Coleman going to establish himself as a true outside receiver that Josh can go to 8 to 10 times a game every single week? Probably. I don't know. We don't know yet. The GM, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott both said he needs to take a big step. Curtis Samuel, I'm good off Curtis Samuel. I don't need to see him on the field too often in Buffalo. And then Khalil Shakir is like your only reliable guy. So bring in a player like DK Metcalf who can go out there and get you 1,000+ yards every single season. I know there's been a couple of years where he's hovered a little bit under that 1,000-yard mark, but every time he catches the ball, it's a first down. Every time he catches the ball, it is a first down, and you're moving the sticks. Like, what more could you ask for in a number one receiver than what DK Metcalf can go out there and provide? And the Seattle offense wasn't great last year. Like, he only had 5 touchdowns because Seattle didn't score that often in all their games. And to be quite honest, like DK wasn't seeing a ton of the targets. So this is a deal that I like, that I would be willing to do. I think all Buffalo Bills fans should be willing to part with pick 62 in the 2025 NFL Draft to go out there and secure DK Metcalf. You're going to have to pay him, but at the end of the day, go pay good football players. Should the Bills trade, though, for DK Metcalf? With all the baggage that he may carry with him and for maybe the diva-ish personality that Bills fans kind of have a sour taste in their mouth of over Stephon Diggs a couple years ago, is it smart to go out there and trade for DK Metcalf? Let me know in the comments section by typing T for trade, typing P for pass. Now we will get to the bread and butter. The top 5 Bills free agency targets before the legal tampering period hits. And listen, there isn't going to be a ton of crazy names out here because the Bills, quite frankly, do not have the money at this point. They have yet to restructure Josh Allen. They have yet to restructure Ed Oliver. They have yet to restructure Deion Dawkins. Like, they haven't created all the cap space in the world yet. So these aren't going to be the most flashy names, but there is one off the bat that we'll start off with, and that is Davante Adams, the former New York Jet receiver who has recently been released. And if Buffalo wanted to sign him right now, they could. He's available to meet with teams and sign with whoever he may like. And he's still a top 10 level receiver in this league. Yes, he didn't have the greatest season in 2024, but man, like when he went over to the Jets, and it wasn't a totally anemic offense, like at least he had Rodgers back there and another complimentary receiver in Garrett Wilson. He was awesome. 12 and a half yards per reception, 850 on the in 11 games is very solid as well, and he got in the end zone 7 times, getting peppered by Aaron Rodgers. And we know that this is a Hall of Fame level receiver that we're talking about here. He could still run routes at an elite level. He still has some of the best hands and some of the best body control in the entire NFL on the sidelines. And he's always open. I feel like Joe Brady and this Buffalo offense could scheme Davante Adams open a ton, and he would be an awesome, awesome addition to Buffalo and give Josh a little bit more security on the outside. Next up, though, we're going to go to the trenches for big body Sebastian Joseph Day. Listen, the Bills need a better run stopper in the middle at this point. I'm not entirely super high on the interior of their defensive line. And you know what? Sebastian Joseph-Day is a big old boy, a 310-pounder, 6'4", and he can stuff the middle up. There were 39 defensive tackles who played at least 250 run snaps, and Joseph-Day garnered PFF's fourth highest run defense grade among that group, while his 26 stops, defined as plays that cause a failure for the offense, were 8th amongst all DTs. And he can get to the quarterback a little bit too. 2.5 sacks, 6 QB hits. Like, why not go out there and make that happen? He had 11 back in 2023 when he split time between LA and San Francisco. Like, this guy does fill up the stat sheet a little bit. And Buffalo needs a better kind of guy like this. Like, yeah, he's probably going to get you, like, a $5 million contract. That's what Buffalo can afford right now. They can't go out and sign the Milton Williams from the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, they've got to go a tier or two below. And I think Joseph-Day is a big body that they can go out there and stuff up the middle with. Next up, this name might not be as inspiring for a ton of people. Still young, though. Christian Fulton, cornerback from the Los Angeles Chargers, and really just has not panned out to the level that you would have wanted somebody who was drafted as highly as he was to pan out. Last year was kind of really down, like 104 QB rating, like just not good at all. Yeah, he had a pick, but he had allowed 5 touchdowns. I'm not all the way in on Christian Fulton, but he is like a replacement level starter. Like, I'm even more out on Kyer Elam, as I know a lot of Bills fans are. Fulton is definitely a player that I would like to replace him with. I mean, think back to 2021, like in Tennessee with that Mike Vrabel defense. Like, he had 14 PBUs. Like, that is something to hang your hat on. I think Fulton would be a solid addition, but you're not going to go out there and be able to sign any of the top free agent corners like a DJ Reed, a Charvarius Ward, or a Carlton Davis. Next up, though, we're going to hit the edge position because Garrett's off the picture. We're going after Dante Fowler Jr., who really had a bounce-back year last year playing with the Washington Commanders, and he can still play, man. Like, he's still young enough to produce at a high level over multiple seasons. How about a 2-year, like $10, $12 million contract for Dante Fowler Jr., who had 10.5 sacks last year? No Bill had 10 sacks last year. Greg Rousseau led the team with 8 or 9. And meanwhile, Dante Fowler can also affect the game in a ton of other ways. He forced 2 fumbles. He had a pick when he's playing with his foot with his hand in the dirt. Like 12 QB hits, 14 tackles for loss. Yeah, I'll take Dante Fowler on my team. And he's been solid throughout his career. He's never been somebody who's going to light it up completely. But if you get him isolated on one tackle out on the outside, yeah, he's going to have success back there, and he's going to get pressure to the quarterback. Bills need to add more to their defensive line and specifically to their pass rush. Fowler would be a good and probably affordable option for Buffalo, as we're trying to keep everything affordable in this video. Next up, and finally, another receiver, and not as flashy as Devontae Adams, Josh Palmer, who has been able to make big plays in his Los Angeles Chargers tenure at the courtesy of Justin Herbert, but not a great season for him. Only 39 receptions, 584 yards. Does get you 15, a catch every single time, but only 1 touchdown, had 4 drops, and that's been a problem in his career before. He had 6 drops back in 2022. Like, he's a kind of a big play receiver, somebody who could definitely play on the outside and get the deep ball from Josh Allen, but not somebody who I want to be throwing the ball to 10 to 15 times a game. I do think Buffalo still needs an alpha receiver in that regard, but Josh Palmer, a solid wide receiver 3 or 4. Obviously he's not going to be a slot guy, but wide receiver 3 or 4 that Buffalo could really have some success with. With that being said, we've gone through 5 big-time free agent targets for Buffalo to go out there and sign. Name a free agent you want the Bills to sign. If it's somebody I said, go ahead. If it's somebody that I didn't say and I'm forgetting somebody massive that could fit great on this Buffalo roster, let me know down in the comment section who your guy is. Name a free agent that Buffalo should sign. And that'll do it for today's edition of the Bills Breakdown by Chat Sports. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because if the Bills make a signing or they make any type of roster move this week, a hectic free agency week, we're going to bring you a video right here on the channel. So lock us in. Here's your #1 spot for Buffalo Bills news and rumors all off season long. See you guys in the next one. And as always, go Bills.